You're listening to Let's Get Surety. Let me hear your bonding talk with Kat Shamapande.
Hey everyone, it's Kat Shamapande. Thanks for joining us for this episode of Let's Get Surety. I have with me today my co-host Mark McCallum, CEO of NASBP. Hey Mark.
Hey Kat, always a pleasure to be with you.
It's always great to have you on. And today I'm excited. We've got two of our past presidents, NASBP past presidents, with us to talk about their presidencies and the surety industry. We have Susan Hecker, Area Executive Vice President with Arthur J. Gallagher and Company. Thanks for being on, Susan.
Well, thanks for the invitation, Kat.
And we also have Ed Heine, Managing Director of Surety at PayneWest Insurance Incorporated. Hey, how's it going, Ed?
Great. Thanks for having us, Kat.
We are excited to have you both on.
Yeah.
So before we kind of dive in more to the topic, I wanted to ask you each how you found the surety industry. How'd you get into surety? Susan?
My story is a little long.
That's okay.
And definitely different.
That's the best.
Yeah. So I was in nursing school.
Yeah, that seems like a roundabout path to surety.
I had a bad accident and I caught my clothes on fire. And I'll show you my arm. But when you, I spent a month in the hospital.
Yeah.
And when you miss that kind of time in school, then I wasn't able, those classes were not offered again until the following year.
Oh.
And so anyway, I was ready for the following year. I took a part-time job that happened to be for an insurance claims adjuster. And so anyway, when it was time to sign up for school the next year, my crazy first ex-husband was transferred. And so that I called every single nursing school in Nashville that day, when I found out, and it was too late to get in for their spring semester. So I started looking for jobs. And so because I'd been working in the insurance industry, I focused kind of on that because I kind of liked it. And so anyway, I applied for a job as a policy typist at Fireman's Fund. Drove up to Nashville, was interviewed by the gal named Betty Short was her name. She was HR at the time, and she said, I think you might be a better candidate for our bond department. The gal there is pregnant and she's not coming back. I want you to go talk to the bond manager. Yeah. And I went and talked to Jack Mayer, and that was it. That put me into the bond department. I worked in an admin role for 3 years and learned a lot. And back then, in those days, there were female underwriters, but not on the contract side. Okay. They were more commercial or financial institution and fidelity business. And that just wasn't my thing.
Yeah.
I was really interested in the construction aspect of the business. And so one day, Don Nowacki came to town. He was our regional guy.
Yeah.
And I had a meeting with him and told him I wanted to go on the training program. And he said, okay.
That is such an interesting story.
That's a great story.
Yeah. So I started on the training program, did that. And then I spent several years underwriting there in Nashville. Moved up was promoted several times, and I benefited from the fact that a couple of the guys that were there got management positions and moved on, and so I was able to move up without having to move anywhere. But then I finally realized that if I wanted the management position, I was going to have to move because Jack Mayer wasn't going anywhere.
Yeah.
So anyway, we had a number of training classes on the West Coast where, Fireman's Fund's corporate headquarters were based. And I came out for one and called Dick Farnsworth up on the phone and said, hey, Dick, I want to come and talk to you.
Yeah.
And he said, sure. So I went in and talked to him and said, I'm ready for a management job. And he said, Susan, you're really going to move all the way across country and leave your family and your home where you've always lived? And I said, yep. And so he had 3 opportunities available. I could go to Pittsburgh, to Cleveland, or to San Francisco. And they were they had at the time there were 5 branches that were comprised, and they were rolling them up into a flagship surety operation based there in San Francisco.
Okay.
And so we weren't going to have an office out in Walnut Creek or up in Santa Rosa or over in Honolulu or down in San Jose. But I handled that San Jose territory. So my branches or my agents were based from Palo Alto down to Santa Maria.
Uh-huh.
And so I did that job for 5 years. And then when my boss was promoted to the chief underwriter for the job, then I got his job.
What made you, or did there come a point where you decided that you wanted to move, obviously, from the underwriter side to the producer side?
Yeah. I mean, I knew that was, something that interested me a lot, but
Yeah.
I never felt like that it was the right opportunity at the right time until Tom Gallagher called me one day, and the Lamberson Coster and Company agency was a big broker for us, and
Yeah.
I knew a number of their customers, and I knew their people really well. And Gallagher had acquired them the year before and made a couple of guys really rich. They didn't want to work anymore. One of them wanted to retire completely. And so anyway, it was the right opportunity
At the right
time. And I felt just a strong connection to Tom Gallagher. I really liked him a lot. And so anyway, I did it. That was 25 years ago, a couple of months ago.
You didn't look back.
Never.
Hey, Ed, how about you? How did you get into surety?
I thought I wanted to be involved in international development, and so that's what I really focused on as an undergrad. And my dad had traveled the world, and so I was always fascinated with international opportunities. But I thought I'd go into Peace Corps to see what it was like to live and work in the third world first.
Yeah.
And I realized that although I really liked development, I didn't want to live and work in the third world. But while I was in El Salvador, I worked with the World Bank on resources.
Uh-huh.
And I thought that would be really cool to be able to kind of be a supporter of development and construction and different things like that. So I came back to the States looking for a job like that.
Yeah.
The World Bank was pretty much international, so I was looking for something synonymous. And I was talking to a gentleman one day after 6 months of looking. He says, "Oh, you want to be a bond guy?" I said, "What's a bond guy?" And he picked up the phone and called a friend of his by the name of Tom Gorky over at Seaboard Surety. And that afternoon, I was working on Seaboard Surety as a trainee. And that's literally how I found the
That's
surety
fast.
business. Trained in New York. And it's kind of interesting hearing, my path and Susan's from that point forward. So
Yeah.
I went from the training program out to Seattle, was there for a while, and then went down to Houston, Texas. And then when they offered me the opportunity to go, by this time I was with Chubb, and by the time they offered me to go to the home office, I didn't want to live and work in New Jersey. Well, my family's there and so forth, but I wanted something out west. And Terry Payne had been one of my very good agents when I was the rep up in Seattle.
Okay.
And I contacted him for perspective. I wasn't applying, and I wasn't sure I wanted to be an agent. He says, "Look, I've been successful, and I want to grow.
Yeah.
Why don't you join me, and we'll see what we can do together." And that was 30 years ago. So
You didn't look back either.
no, not at all. I'm like Susan, very, very happy and frankly thrilled with what I do for a living.
This is a fabulous business.
It really
Yeah.
is.
I mean, kudos to both of you for seizing opportunities and recognizing those opportunities when they came up. But then also what's interesting is that there was opportunities, at each step of your career, that the surety industry offered you a pathway for a further progression of your career.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And is that something that you find true today for the people you work with?
Oh, I think there's lots of opportunities out there if you want to work hard and you want to reach out and grab them. For me, I didn't, from an education perspective, I needed to round out my education from a business perspective because that wasn't what I was studying. And so I went and got my CPCU. And with the accounting and the finance and the law and so forth, that helped. And then I had the just the day-to-day experiences of handling business.
Did your employer help you with that? Or did you do it on your own to get your CPCU?
Fireman's Fund paid for everything.
Okay.
Yeah, I just had to do the work.
Right. Great.
My opportunities were very similar. I spent most of my years in the field with Chubb, and they had a program in their home office that was outstanding, where they'd bring you in on a regular basis and, frankly, give you almost like a graduate degree type of work program. But then when I joined Terry, he had a real strong focus on a risk management approach for the best businesses of their kind in Western Montana. And so I joined an organization that was really biased towards doing things in, I think, a more sophisticated way, and that required a lot of education. And we've tried to incorporate that kind of policy into our company yet to this day. But just real quickly, we talk about mentors, and I remember Terry saying, you could be anything you want to be. You just have to make the effort to do it. And then, of course, he fills your inbox with stuff, and you can't breathe. Of course, yeah. But he's right, and I've never forgotten that. If you work hard and apply yourself, working with our clients is so engaging and challenging at the same time. So,
right.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like oftentimes what you do, there's always something different. So you have to almost make that commitment to be a lifelong learner. Mm-hmm. Is that true?
It's never dull.
Never dull?
Never.
Yeah.
And even this morning, the program that we had here at the NASBP meeting, they were talking about business perpetuation. They were talking about technology, and we've had business perpetuation on our agendas at these meetings for many times. But if you listen carefully, things continue to evolve, and different dynamics and different methods are being used. And then the technology thing, you lose your breath trying to keep up with that.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. That is true.
So you made it over to the producer side, and then when you were there, what was the impetus for you to get involved in NASBP? Susan?
Well, I started attending NASBP regional meetings when I was still based in Nashville, and when I came to work for Gallagher was when I got to attend. That was my first national meeting at the St. Francis Hotel, so in San Francisco.
Yeah.
And I knew what NASBP was. I knew, the focus on advocacy and networking and education. And, but as over the years, you make a lot of friends in this business, and you attend meetings. And one day I was literally in Washington, D.C. at the FedCon meeting.
Okay. That's with which organization does FedCon?
The AGC.
Right.
Yeah. So I was there, and then the door opened, and there were Spence. There was Spence and
Spence Miller?
Todd. Yeah, and Todd and Larry. And I want to say one other person.
Larry McMahon and Todd Leonard?
Yeah.
Also past presidents.
They came to pull me out of this meeting and wanted me to go to lunch with them. And they'd been trying to get me to say I would go into the chairs. And I knew if I went out to lunch that I would not have any willpower to continue to say no. I have a big job, and it takes a lot of time. And I knew that to do that right was going to be a big commitment. And I went out to lunch with them, and that was all she wrote. I said, yes, I'll do it.
That was that. What about you, Ed?
I was hired on May 1st, 1990 by Terry, and I was living at Houston at the time. And he says, before you come to Missoula, go to Washington and be my proxy. They formed a new committee. NASBP's formed a new committee called the Environmental Issues Subcommittee. So my first day on the job was in Washington, D.C., representing the agency at an NASBP event. And like Susan, prior to that, as a company rep, I had gone to a few meetings, but really didn't understand what was going on. Well, this was before our organization grew, and so there I am living and working in Missoula, Montana. And it's a fairly remote place, and you had no way of staying connected other than when the reps were coming through or whatever it might be. And I found that every single time I reached out to NASBP for anything, and there were a lot of things I reached out for, it was incredible the amount of responsiveness I received, not just from staff, but also, as Susan says, from our colleagues. And it became almost such a valuable part of the way that I conducted business, and with the emphasis on resourcefulness. And so I got involved. And so I actually ended up, heading up that environmental issues committee after a couple of years, and just kind of went from there, and was never disappointed. Often challenged, often frustrated, but never disappointed. And to this day, the value that we receive from our membership in this association is extraordinary. Yeah.
That's great. Now, you would say obviously that you valued, but I imagine, Susan, is it true that your clients also have valued by what you've learned through NASBP and your NASBP connections?
My clients have definitely benefited from what I've learned over the years. And when we finally got the infrastructure bill passed, our customers had heard me say, yeah, we've been on the Hill for like 9 years talking about this. So it's nice to finally see it come to fruition.
It's almost an expectation.
Okay.
We don't get thank yous all that often in our work from our clients. In order to have a seat around their table, you have to really have, the network built up and the resourcefulness to assist them with what they need to run their business.
Yeah.
And whether it be the information we gather from our engagement with AGC or NASBP or whatever other organization we belong in, including our own companies, that's almost a price of admission when you're handling sophisticated, growing contractors,
Right. They're expecting you to be current with market conditions, what's going on, what they're facing, to be somewhat predictive of the future, at least the near term, right? So that's interesting that, there's an opportunity through NASBP to reach out, find out what's going on and throughout the country, not just where you are, right? So Susan, you said you kind of got drafted into leadership a little bit at NASBP, but it also sounds like you wanted to give something back as well.
It's been an amazing experience, and the giving back is that's why I did it. I've benefited a lot from this industry and from this business, and it is a wonderful way to give back.
Is that true for you too, Ed?
I anticipated that question. We asked you what were you going to be asking us, and you said let's just keep it casual. But I have to be totally honest. Initially, it was very selfish.
Yeah.
I needed this resource in order to learn, advocate, and all the things that NASBP did or does, and so I discovered, after getting involved in it, what Susan just said, and that is that it's such an enriching experience, just to be able to have the trust of, your competitor, and being able to have access to the leaders of the industry with such ease. I'm very grateful for the opportunity that comes from it, and I teach at the school, for instance, and I'll always want to do that sort of thing, where you're just trying to perpetuate, that which the association provides to its members.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
So did you have a particular primary focus during your presidencies? Susan, was there something that you wanted to showcase or focus on?
I focused in on the young people. So our 515 group had been in place for a number of years by that time, and I thought it was time to give them some more responsibility. So Chad Martin and Brian Ayers were my program chairs for my meeting at the Broadmoor, and I also what the feedback that we were getting from them was that they wanted to meet and engage with their peers on the company side.
Right.
And but there wasn't a lot of that kind of interaction, and I got some pushback from the markets and the leaders in the markets that I, initially talked to, and I understood that they were hesitant to kind of identify their up and coming all stars for fear that somebody would poach them.
Because there are many good opportunities.
Exactly,
Right? Yeah.
Right.
exactly. But I ended up challenging them in my speech to create, what became their young professionals group. It didn't last very long, but it did give our 515 people an opportunity there for a while to get to,
Right.
to work with
The
their
legacy
peers.
continues, right? Where that is really the 515 leadership committee is kind of a core area to filter people into our committee work and in leadership positions, ultimately going up, hopefully, to the officer corps and all that. So that's pretty special. What about you, Ed?
Well, I was about 10 years before Susan. And one of the things that the audience should recognize is you go through chairs. So when you get invited in and you go through 3 or 4 years of kind of learning the ropes and watching what's happened. And I, along with the other members of the committee, were at a time when some pretty challenging things were taking place in the bond business and also at NASBP. So we developed kind of like a 3-year plan. So it wasn't Ed's plan. It was, it was several people that came together to identify the need for stronger leadership, better operational management, better general counsel and legal dynamics, particularly as it applied to the advocacy. And as a matter of fact, Mark, that's where, you and I met. You came on board about that time. And that was part of a very specific strategy that we had put together. And we collaborated a little bit with SFAA, during that time too, because they had some dynamics that they were dealing with. And the whole idea was not to preserve the legacy, but to enhance it with stronger leadership and just better operational management, and to bring the right kind of discipline to the financial management of the organization too. So that's what I spent my time doing. And frankly, not just me, but others have been able to carry on that strategy and enhance it very effectively ever since.
So it sounds like the skills you were applying with your clients, you also were applying with your trade association, making sure that they were well positioned, had the resources, and could be successful for the future.
Good. I don't know if I've ever learned more in such a compressed period of time as I did when I was president of NASBP.
Trial by fire, Ed?
There was just a phenomenal variety of things that came across the desk. And you really had to collaborate with a lot of people. You couldn't just make a unilateral decision on something. And I learned a lot about, how to approach a subject, how to negotiate, how to say no at times, and, really prioritize what people had the time and the capability of doing. So it was a wonderful opportunity in that regard, too.
So what has surprised you since you've been president about either the industry or NASBP or both? Susan, do you want to?
Surprised me. I don't know that I'm surprised really about anything. It's a wonderful association that people continue to be drawn to, that young people are, supporting. And there's all kinds of ages of us that are, very active in the association still. So I don't know. You surprised by anything, Ed?
I'm fascinated by the fact that we have at least another 1,000 surety companies extending surety credit, yet our total global revenue is about the same, with all seriousness, with all the mergers and acquisitions and everything that are going on, nothing has, the overall basis of our economy of our surety economy is about the same, and yet there's an awful lot of players. And usually that dilutes the overall return, right? But look at the profitability of the business, particularly in recent years. So, I think that's fascinating. I don't understand how it's happening, and I wish everybody well as they engage in our business, but I've never been able to quite figure that out.
Well, kind of along those lines, maybe that's a good point to explore a little bit further about the importance of a producer being discerning and, on behalf of your clients and, and that I think in this kind of environment, it's very important that the producer understands the marketplace and is discerning for their client. Would you agree with that, Susan?
Absolutely. I mean, it's our job to make sure that we're placing our customers' business with the right market that's going to provide them with the support that they need, support their business plan, but also provide them with potentially other tools, that they need as their business plan expands and grows, and the guidance that they've seen. Certain things work well for some customers, and they learn lessons. And when those lessons can be shared by an underwriting team back to the contractor likes it. When you call out something and you point out something in a contract that's not favorable, have you thought about how this could happen as a result of it? It's important for us to make sure that it's incumbent upon us to make sure we've got them with the right market. And this atmosphere here gives us a perfect opportunity to do that. I went to a number of cocktail parties last night and went to the ones where we have a lot of business, and went to a few where we don't, but maybe we should.
Yeah. Is that true for you too?
Absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't say it better. I think, though, that one of the things that's happening now is when you're in the risk business, I don't care whether it's insurance or surety, we have to be careful that we don't become too transactional, and that we continue to put a real focus on education and differentiation and really do everything we can to help our customers out. But in the delivery of our product, there are certain types of products that don't really require the level of expertise that others may, So I think over the next several years, you're probably going to see some segmentation. It's already started to where professional agents have developed and carriers have developed systems to create successful delivery of surety products, in a fairly efficient manner. And really dedicate resources to the high-end expertise and, as you say, discernment for their best customers, the ones that show the greatest potential or are the largest accounts out there. Yeah.
If you had one piece of advice for a new bond producer thinking about getting more involved with NASBP, what would that be?
Come to the meetings and go to the committee meetings, because that's where the hard work gets done, and that's where your stronger relationships get formed. Like Ed, I'm also a faculty member. He's been doing it a lot longer than I have at the schools, but that's a great way to also not only give back, but to also learn a few things yourselves, along the way.
You can give back by teaching, but you also get a lot.
You get a lot from that
Yeah.
process. Well, it helps keep me sharp. You have people asking you questions, and, you don't always come upon situations that, over and over, but you get questions about them, and it, brings back memories of things that you have, just like whether you're teaching ethics or what you're teaching. I've had a number of ethical situations over the past, and the past presidents didn't have any. Come up here with me, Susan, and tell your stories.
Yeah, totally. A colleague of mine, this is his first meeting, and he's a regional vice president, and he said to me last night, I cannot believe what this meeting is like with regards to your access to the leadership of the industry. And he essentially said, not all of those issues that Susan refers to that you hear about in the committee meetings are top of mind or really, all that critically important in every jurisdiction we serve. But being aware of them And knowing that you have the resource to be able to pick up the phone and call that committee chair and really get the skinny on things is invaluable. It really makes that connection between, the publications that we put out and, just the relationship. And you get immediate access to just about anything that is impacting your customers. That's from his mouth. That's not me speaking. And
Yeah.
so, in 2 days, he's a believer. He was a believer beforehand, but now he says, oh, okay, I get this now, so.
So once you get here, you'll definitely get it.
I can't imagine not.
Yeah.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah.
And it's easy to get on a committee. So there's a committee interest form that's available on the NASBP website, and it's a pretty simple form. They fill it out, and then we get that process underway. So, it's easy for them to express that interest and get.
And importantly, you don't have to attend the national meeting to belong to a
Right.
committee, which is
Correct.
some people think that's the case, and it's not. So.
And those committees are open to NASBP members and affiliate members as well. It's terrific. Well, I just want to thank you both for being on with us today. It's been so much fun talking with you both about your presidencies and about the surety industry as a whole. Hopefully we'll get you on another podcast sometime, and this won't be your last.
You've been listening to Let's Get Surety. Let me hear your bonding talk. Brought to you by the National Association of Surety Bond Producers. For more information about the NASBP and its members, visit nasbp.org.